Thank you all for joining us today and for the ECA Bay Area Fall Workshop today, November 17th. I'm going to introduce Dena Gunning, who is one of our ECA Bay Area Coordinating Committee chairs with Central County Fire out of San Mateo County. Daniel Homsey from the City and County of San Francisco will be joining us a little bit later on. And Ray Benthien from Kaiser is also one of the chairs, but is not able to be with us today. So with that, I will turn over to Dena.
Great, thank you, Mark, and thank you everybody for being here today, joining us for the Bay Area Earthquake Country Alliance workshop. We're happy to have everybody here. And let me see, I'm just trying to pull up my agenda here real quick.
And just be mindful of what's on the slide too, what for these first couple of slides for you to go over.
Perfect, thanks, Mark. Juggling a couple things here today, so bear with me in just a moment. So we just wanted to kind of go over again what we do as the Bay Area Earthquake Country Alliance. We're over 4,000 public-private grassroots leaders that come together and comprised of 4 different sectors. We have the Redwood Coast Tsunami Working Group, our Bay Area ECA group. We have a Central Coast and also our Southern California group. So all of our regional alliances organize meetings and do outreach activities throughout the state based on our California's Office of Emergency Services FEMA funding for those activities that relate to earthquakes and tsunamis. And it's all based out of USC's Southern California Earthquake Center. So our SCEC are the administrators of the ECA. So this is a list of our coordinating committees. Again, Ray Benthien, myself and Daniel Homsey are the co-chairs. Susan Garcia, our communications coordinator, and Chief David Cosgrave from Coastside Fire, and Casey Treadway for our events bureau. Our media bureau coordinators, Janet Ruiz and Jennifer Strauss, and our membership coordinator, Wendy Ellis. Participating bureau coordinators, Teresa Langdon and Christy Duenas from our Alameda County OES, and our regional workshop coordinator, Jeff Areth from SFO. And we do have an opening for our sector-based committee coordinators. So if you would like to join our committee and have an interest, please contact Sharon Sandel de Groot if you're interested in being a sector-based committee coordinator. It's a lot of fun and it's a great networking opportunity as well. So thank you. And so our agenda today, our introductions, we're going to have our ECA updates and shakeout summary and our 2022 mini awards from Mark Benthien, and our Quakes Break, our Bay Area Seismic Activity since our last workshop from Jessica Murray, and then our HayWired Toolkit from Monika Stoffel, and our mitigation moment from our earthquake brace and bolt, Andy Ewertsen, mitigation manager for our California Earthquake Authority, and then we'll have some open discussion time. Okay, so with that, I will send it back over to you, Mark, for our ECA updates and shakeout summary and the 2022 mini awards. Mark, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dena, and thank you for being one of our chairs for the ECA Bay Area for quite a while. Appreciate your leadership. So continuing on the description of ECA, because I know many of you are new and some of you have heard this many times before, but as a reminder, we do develop messaging and resources used statewide and even elsewhere, even around the world. And I'll share a couple of those. We do support Tsunami Preparedness Week, which is kind of next up major campaign which in March, then of course Shakeout in October. So those are our two cornerstone activities of the year, if you will. Tsunami Preparedness Week registration is already open, like we have for Shakeout. There's also registration at tsunamizone.org. And you can have events of all types that are related to tsunami activities. There will be official activities in the week of March 21st to the 25th. And of course, Shakeout just happened in October. And then for next year, the date is October 20th in 2022, always on the third Thursday of October. We do have sector-based outreach committees that are creating webinars and documents and materials to support their sectors. And we encourage all of you to, if you see a committee here that represents your sector or a sector for which you have experience or know others that might be appropriate to be a part of these discussions, please join us. You can find out more at earthquakecountry.org/committees. And Sharon Sandell will also put her email contact, both for joining one of these committees and for participating in ECA Bay Area in the chat, so that you can reach out directly there too, as it just was put. So be following the chat. You'll see we're putting a lot of the links that are on the screen into the chat to make it easier for you to click and go there as we're talking. We also have outreach bureaus that are coordinating these campaigns and the outreach and events like preparedness fairs, now that we'll be able to have them again, and also online and in-person presentations. And we do have a request form at earthquakecountry.org/events that we encourage you to use to request any of those types of presentations for your group, your community, your business, any organization you're involved with. We can provide a presentation that often is following our 7 steps to earthquake safety, but can be customized by region and by sector. We've had quite a few webinars and workshops in the last couple months listed here. We've had 4 now of our community engagement webinars. The 4th was just yesterday, featured Martinez area CERT activities out of the Bay Area and health center partners out of Southern California. There's a typo there. Both talked about how they used ECA mini awards for activities they coordinated in 2021. So the recording of that talk will be available soon at earthquakecountry.org/community. Last week, we had a similar workshop as today for SoCal, and there have been other webinars from our accessibility committee on effective communication with people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Primarily, we're looking to have more of those types of webinars, or inclusive of all aspects of disabilities, and really for everyone. And then also our Epicenter Committee for Museums and Parks and Libraries held a webinar in September. So you can go to these links here for our committees, and also to learn about and view those materials, those webinars. We've had multilingual resources in a few languages, but are pleased to share that we now, in addition to Spanish and English, and we've had some materials in a few other languages, we now have many of our key documents about earthquake safety, the 7 steps to earthquake safety, and earthquake self-protective guidance in different situations, now in 15 languages, including English. And you can find that at earthquakecountry.org/languages to be able to download the version of each document for the languages that you need. Included in these documents is a document, a workbook we're calling Your Action Plan for the 7 steps to earthquake safety. While what I'm showing on screen is a different language for each step, that is not how it comes. It comes, of course, in each language, you can download this now. It is going to be, it's intended to be printed as a workbook, that kind of a folded up quad fold. And so we're working on getting those printed at some point, but also will be available for you to print in that format too. So we'll have both a standard printed version as well as a version that you can take to FedEx office or some other printer and have made in that way. And it'll be great for when there are presentations for the 7 steps for people to be following along and taking a few notes on what they will do for each of the steps. Now, if there was an earthquake right now, or if we had just received an alert, I will stop the sound effects, say it was only a 3.0 or so. But of course, we would, this is just to show that we've updated our graphics and and that all of the materials that we've been showing here not only are updated, but are updated in terms of their accessibility. So every image has alt text, and the documents are laid out so that a screen reader will read them in the appropriate order. So very important that as we continue to make sure that we're reaching everyone everywhere with our messaging. Shakeout, of course, just happened, and we are rebounding from last year where we had a significant fall off because of COVID, of course. We're looking forward to 2022 being hopefully back to a more typical year. Now, that said, while the International Shakeout Day has happened, if you did not have a drill yet, or if you didn't drill with all the organizations that you're involved with, you still can. So if maybe you drilled at the office or in a school setting, but you can drill with maybe in your faith-based organization or the community-based organization, or of course, even in your household. Really important to practice in all these settings and practice in different times of day as part of your shakeout. And that's really good advice for even for during a pandemic, where you may want to divide up your drills and have people for social distancing needs at different places and different times, and also maybe even having your drills online. We do have presentations for doing online or in-person drills for different categories, and now also in Spanish. And so you can find those at shakeout.org/COVID-19 and shakeout.org/Espanol/COVID-19. So just before I continue and talk about ECA mini awards, have there been any questions about anything I've talked about so far, or do you have any questions right now? And you could just put that in the chat, or this is the time where if you know how to use the your reactions menu to raise your hand, you could just click that and I'll call on you. And thank you, Sharon, for putting the links that we've been talking about into the chat, so be looking there as well. Also point out that on this slide, there is the link for the survey. So before you leave today, please click that link. It will be on a couple or in the chat as has just been put. So that it's really quick and it's great to do right now and versus getting an email a week from now and you'll just get it handled. So we really appreciate that. And if you have any questions about our new multilingual resources and how to get them, or maybe even suggestions for other materials, because we do plan to do more translation, and any questions about anything from today, you can email info@earthquakecountry.org. Okay, so the Earthquake Country Alliance for many years now has had a program called the Mini Awards. And I just saw a question come in. Yes, we do have, Korean is definitely one of the languages. It's the top 15 languages as spoken at home in the state, according to many, the census and many sources. So and at earthquakecountry.org/languages, you can see the list of languages that are available. Okay, so on our Mini Awards program, the purpose is to provide materials, not money, but we actually buy the materials for you to have projects that improve earthquake resilience, that are promoting mitigation, awareness, and preparedness, really to multiply the impact of your activities. So we've had CERT teams that have helped their neighbor homes get items secured so they won't fall and cause injury or damage. We've had businesses do that, or nonprofit organizations in their workplaces and schools, healthcare facilities. We've had educational materials, and I'll kind of show you some examples of what's available. The projects are awarded in $500 or $1,000 increments. And you do need to be an ECA member. So if you are going to apply, before you apply, make sure you sign up at earthquakecountry.org/join. And proposals for mitigation and education activities are accepted. You can propose other activities than the examples that we're going to be providing and the pre-identified packages you can choose from, but we're not and no longer supporting basic earthquake supply kits and other type of actions. This is really trying to mitigate and prevent possible injury and loss and to provide education. It's based on the requirements from FEMA, the source of the funding for this activity. So I'm about to show you some of the packages you can request. You can customize them or propose other kind of collections of items at any stage, including you might select one of these packages, and then we'll give you an opportunity if you need to swap out a couple things still for the same amount of price to make it more specific to what you actually need. So at some point you want to do an assessment of what type of items do we need to secure and what do we need. So one of the items we're calling the secure your space materials are we have packages for securing a school, a community organization, or a small workplace, 2 levels of that. We have 2 packages for securing homes. Neither of them are going to secure every item in a home. This is either a house or an apartment or condo or mobile home, but they are a great start. And one package has more items per space, and so it's only securing 10 living spaces. And another package, as shown here, has 3 items, but you'd get 20 of these. And this is to secure 1 flat screen TV, 1 bookshelf, and 2 cabinets with a cabinet latch. So these are quick start kits. These are helping your neighbors get a couple items secured. Those items secured may mean the difference between someone being injured or not when their television, now that if it wasn't secured, may have fallen and hit them, or the furniture fell over, or items in the cabinet fell out. So while it's only a few items, it can make a big difference in your neighborhood. So you can choose, though, at what level, how many, if you want to secure more things in 10 homes or fewer things in 20. Okay. We also have some education options. We'll be adding to these in the application when you see it. You can, if you're familiar with actually there's a missing word here, map your neighborhood workbooks shown here for that program. There's also 2 children's activities that we've had a lot of recipients have great success with in different settings. Storybooks as well as activity books. And in fact, you may be able to get a package with even more of these activity books. And we're also going to be providing 7 steps to earthquake safety signage that you can use for your events. And this is a really great way to organize a preparedness fair where you have vendors for each of the different 7 steps. And this would provide signage for you to do that in a simple way. So we want to hopefully get more in-person activities going and have like we've all done in the past. If you aren't familiar with the Rocket Rules materials, you can find those more at rocketrules.org/earthquake. And here's the timeline with the applications opening on Monday. We have 3 weeks to apply, and we're going to be providing a lot of assistance during that period. So we really want you to have great applications that can be accepted, that meet all the criteria. And so we'll be following up with you as you submit those and encouraging or providing feedback. And it's a very simple process, I must say. The application form is not, very long. It's a few questions, so you're answering with a few sentences, just enough that you can be, define what you're going to be doing in your program, how you're going to use the materials you receive, and how you're going to make sure they get implemented in the timeline of the project, which is very important. Everything must be done by May 31st, which is when our current funding for these activities from the California Office of Emergency Services will end. So all activities for will need to be completed by then. And then you'll present at the ECA Bay Area Workshop in August what you have done with the materials. And that itself is only about 5 minutes, so it's not a very long presentation. And we really want to make this easy for you to have a great impact in your organization, in your communities, and to really reduce potential losses and increase education. And yeah, earthquakecountry.org/mini awards is where all the information will be updated. If you go there now, you'll see that we're encouraging you to get a head start, and we really do. If you might have an inkling that you will be requesting this type of funding and materials to have these types of activities that you can conduct, go ahead and email us at info@earthquakecountry.org so that we can give you feedback and suggestions on your project. And we encourage all of you who are attending today to consider submitting an application for the project. It really, our past recipients, some of who are here today, have reported that they had great results with taking on not something huge that will take a lot of your attention, but hopefully, especially now that we're able to do more work together in person, that a lot of the mitigation activities, the securing of contents and such will be easier to do. You'll be able to access the facilities that you need to, or into your neighbors' homes to secure the items, or you can also just give it to them, but make sure that they have the tools needed and instructions for how to properly install those items. And we will need to get photos of what's been installed. Okay, so any questions on the mini award program? It's a very quiet group today, and we would really encourage again that everyone be, if not yourself, think of an organization in your community that serves many people, and that if an earthquake happened and they lost their items that they might have in storage, we've had one group here from Martinez Area CERT that has secured a Meals on Wheels kitchen storage area. So you can imagine the importance of that operation continuing after an earthquake, so that the people who rely on those meals can still get them. And if there's been an earthquake and everything has fallen and broken, then that would be delayed. So you may even consider other groups letting them know about the availability of these resources. And without seeing any questions about the mini awards program, we will then move to our next section here. Daniel Homsey, I see that you oh yeah, there you are. And I will go ahead and spotlight you too. If you could go ahead and introduce our next speaker.
Great. Good day, everyone. And thank you, Mark, for updating us on the mini awards program. It's a fantastic program, and hope everyone takes advantage of it. We've seen real benefit and impact in the communities that have in the past. So please take the time to learn more about it and determine whether or not it's a good fit for you and your organization. I'm really honored to announce Jessica Murray, who's with the USGS, also known as the United States Geological Survey. And bottom line is she is a geophysicist in the organization at the Earthquake Science Center And she's going to present what we call our Quakes Break, which is our daily update, our monthly update, if you will, on seismic activity since our last workshop. Jessica, take it away.
Okay, thank you for inviting me today. And so, yeah, I'll just be talking about earthquakes that have happened since your last meeting, which was August 25th. And overall, it's been a very quiet period of time. So I hope it's not a little bit dull, but I guess that's a good thing. This map is showing earthquakes that happened in that time period, August 25th to the 15th of this month. And you can see this is statewide and also Nevada. And basically the earthquakes are where one would generally expect them to be along the major fault systems. If we could zoom in a little bit on the next slide. I think Mark is maybe advancing my slides. There we go. So these maps that I'm showing you are ones that you could look at anytime you wanted by going to our website, which is shown at the bottom here. There's a search function for the earthquake catalog, and you can choose any time period and geographic location, magnitude range that you're interested in. And one of the overlays you can look at is our National Seismic Hazard Map, which is the coloring that you're seeing now. So you can see again that the earthquakes are largely falling in places that have higher predicted hazard, particularly along the San Andreas system, which is that red line on the west coast there. And if you can advance one more slide, you can also take a look at how that matches up with population density. So you can see again, some places like the LA area and the Bay Area have high population density coinciding with high hazard. And then you have other places like the Sacramento area, which are not as high hazard, but that's an interesting way to look at things to see how your hazard and your recent earthquakes are affecting population centers. So if we could go to the next slide. Since this is supposed to be sort of focusing on the Bay Area, here I am zooming in. And like I was mentioning initially, it really was a fairly quiet period of time. So I don't have a lot of earthquakes to talk about, but if you go on to the next slide, I will talk about a couple of the larger ones that happened in that time period. So I had to zoom out a little bit to do that. And yeah, I see something in the comments about an earthquake that happened today, which I'll mention at the end. So if you could click one more time, there were a couple sort of animations to this slide. If you could click once. Yeah, so I think in your last Quakes Break that Austin Elliott presented, he talked about the Antelope Valley earthquake that happened in July. So we continue to see some aftershocks there of that magnitude 6. And if you click again, then we had in August 4.1 near the Pinnacles. This is the focal mechanism shown here as a beach ball diagram, which basically this pattern of quadrants colored white and blue indicates that it was a strike slip earthquake on the San Andreas fault here. So if you click again, we can look in a little more detail at that one. So you may be aware that we have on our website a Did You Feel It page where you can submit a response if you did feel an earthquake, or if you know about an earthquake in your area and you didn't feel it, you could submit that too. So for the Pinnacles earthquake, 265 people responded, all showing essentially very light, weak or light shaking. And you can also compare that again to the same web page. Each earthquake has its own event page to the shake map, which is intensity that is inferred from a combination of Did You Feel It and instrumental data. So these triangles are showing you where there are instruments that recorded it, and you can see they match up pretty well, very lightly felt in the southern Bay Area here. If you go on to the next slide, I'll talk about one other earthquake, a very slightly larger one by San Simeon, 4.7, that was on October 25th. This beach ball diagram shows that it's a thrust event. And so that's, again, not surprising for that area. And this is in the same general area where you may remember there was a larger earthquake in 2003 that had, I think, maybe 2 fatalities. It was an earthquake that hit near Paso Robles and caused a lot of damage down there. So, if you can go on to the next slide. I see another question in the chat. I'm going to save the questions to the end because I think they're pertaining to the earthquake that happened today. So this is, again, did you feel it report for the San Simeon earthquake? It was a little bit bigger. It had a few more responses than the previous one. The one thing you can look at on our website on the Did You Feel It tile for the earthquake is not just the map, but also how those responses compare to what is predicted from the ground motion intensity equations that are used, often to predict what the ground motion will be for different events. So there's a lot of symbols on this plot, but basically what you're seeing is the intensity that people felt versus the distance that they were from the earthquake. And the little blue dots are all of the responses. And then there are mean and median values with the larger symbols. And I think that the thing that I would like you to notice is that these are lining up quite well with one of the predicted relationships, these empirical relationships, in particular, one that was developed for the West Coast. So I would say this is a fairly typical earthquake. Not all of them are, but this one seems to match up quite well. If you can go to the next slide. Again, here is a comparison to the shake map, and similar to the Pinnacles earthquake, the intensities were really quite low, both reported by individuals and reported instrumentally. If you can go on to the next slide. So I will talk a little bit about Earthquakerly Warning, and I haven't been able to see all the chat comments while I was talking, but I know at least one was asking about Earthquakerly Warning. And so just a brief overview, I think most people probably know something about this, but the idea is that when an earthquake happens, say on a fault at the left of the slide here, the time it takes for the shaking to reach you is more, because the waves travel slower than it takes for information to reach you. So basically, if we can sense that earthquake using seismometers and other instruments that are close to it, and then send that information to a processing center where it's converted, used to figure out magnitude and shaking, we can get that information to people before they actually feel that shaking and alert them that shaking is coming. So if you go on to the next slide, you can now get these alerts in a number of ways. Everybody can get them through the WIA system, wireless emergency alerts. Those are the same alerts that send you Amber alerts and things like that. So you would get alerts for if you are predicted to have magnitude intensity for shaking for magnitude 5+ earthquakes. And then there are 2 apps. Well, I should say one app, which is MyShake, which is going to give you alerts if you are predicted to feel MMI 3+ shaking for magnitude 4.5 and above earthquakes. And recently, Android, Google started to also put out, take the shake alerts and then distribute them to Android phones. So if you have a newer Android operating system on your phone, then you automatically should be getting these. And they're actually going to send 2 levels of alerts. One that they call a be aware alert if you're expected to feel intensity 3 or higher. And then one that is a take action alert. So if you're expected to feel intensity 5 or greater shaking, and both of those pertain to magnitude 4.5 and higher earthquakes. So I think I did see flying by in the chat out of the corner of my eye that someone asked if they should have received an alert for an earthquake that happened today. And someone answered that no, because it wasn't a high enough magnitude. So thank you for whoever is monitoring the chat. And then this is just an example for that magnitude 4.7 San Simeon earthquake of the shake alerts that were generated. So on the map on the left, the star is the ANSS location, but the black circle is the location that the shake alert system estimated. So it was quite a good location estimate. And the blue polygon is the intensity 3 and higher shaking polygon from the first alert that was issued. And then those alerts do get updated as more data are available. At the time of that alert, this strong shaking or the peak shaking front was at the red circle, and that obviously will be moving outward with time. So it's showing you where will you feel shaking 10 seconds later and 20 seconds later with the other circles. And then on the right-hand side is a map basically showing what were the contours for the peak magnitude estimate, because as I was just mentioning, the magnitude can change as more data come in. It can go up or down actually as more data come in and the estimate gets more certain. So these were small earthquakes that we felt, or some people felt. I didn't actually feel any of them, but that happened in our region in the last few months. And as I think a number of you are aware, there was another earthquake just a couple hours ago on the Calaveras Fault, or perhaps near the fault, if not on it. And it was, I think the last I checked, it was 3.9 was the 3.8 is the magnitude that is on our event page right now near San Ramon, California. So some of you may have felt that, and if you did and you haven't done so already, please fill out a "Did you feel it" report. And I think with that, I should take any questions that people might still have. I can try to also look at the chat and see if there's anything that I missed.
You've done a great job of seeing that out of the corner of your eye and answering some of the questions along the way. So, and there are some thank yous to you for your presentation. Daniel, are you ready to move on and to our next speaker?
Absolutely, and thank you for that update, Jessica. It was great. The more you know, as they say. With that, I want to introduce a friend of mine who has been a champion for this work for many years, and just a great leader, thought leader in the Bay Area region, and also statewide and nationally, is Monika Stoffel, the executive director of the California Resiliency Alliance. And she's going to take a minute and update you on a really important new resource that has been worked on and developed over the last few years in the Bay Area with a lot of people's input. And I'm really excited to hear what she has to share.
Thank you for the introduction, Daniel. And as you mentioned, this really has been a collaborative presentation or collaborative work on that. The HayWired scenario, the final report of which was released last month. And so now all 3 volumes are out there. And this work really focuses on that and has brought together a collection of stakeholders to make that something that's more accessible for exercising. If we go to the next slide. So the HayWired scenario focuses on a magnitude 7.0 earthquake on the Hayward Fault and its aftershocks spanning over a 2-year period. So it really takes a broader perspective on this than just the immediate shaking. It really looks at what does it mean for our society to have an earthquake in a major urban populated area. As you can see on the graphic, that fault runs through a lot of communities. There's a lot of homes there, businesses, bridges, roads, water pipes, internet cables, cell towers. What does that earthquake mean for us? And it presents a plausible scenario of what that might be. because the last time we've experienced this was back in 1868, an earthquake of this magnitude, and the region looked quite different back then. Because of time, I'm not going to show a short overview video, but I have the link here and we can put it into the chat for people who want to access that. Next slide. Really, the purpose of this toolkit is to bring together and make it easy accessible the wealth of information that is in the 3 volumes of the HayWired scenario report. It really links to the data that's in there. It sparks ideas on ways to exercise an earthquake scenario that go beyond the standard, drop, cover, hold. What do you do in those first few hours? It looks at a much more dynamic picture. Because of the location of this earthquake and the urban population, the ideas generated by this scenario can also be applied to many other regions that have earthquake risks. Because the prompting questions, the challenges that are faced after an earthquake are pretty similar in that sense in different regions. The details vary, but the core questions to think about, there's overlap. Also, using this scenario can allow people to really delve into and get better prepared for other events. If you've thought about how do you deal with the loss of power after an earthquake, you're already that much better prepared for dealing with the loss of power because of a public safety shutoff event, or a winter storm, or any other reason that might cause a power outage. Next slide. So the toolkit is really structured to bring and highlight key aspects of the 3 volumes, kind of making things easily accessible. It creates a whole list of ideas to generate exercises around. It has some information on getting started developing your exercises. And then it talks about how not to have it end at that point, but to keep going and how to continuously improve and keep that momentum going with building resilience. And then it links to and has additional resources online. Next slide. So this toolkit really spans all 4 phases of the emergency management cycle. And it's designed really with an audience in mind who may not have a strong background in emergency management, who may have never designed an exercise before. So it really is designed to work for those with minimal experience, but also be a source of ideas and information for those who have more experience. As you can see here, the exercise ideas span a whole variety of themes. Some are ones that we think about more often, such as water, wastewater, utility challenges, but it also delves into areas that we often forget about. What if we can't get our mail? What does that mean? What does it mean in regards to insurance? Or how do we pay our employees? And so it really takes kind of that broader perspective. And it's designed for all organizations, be they private sector, be they public sector, be they nonprofit, be they formal entities or informal entities. It's really at that organizational level, how do you build resilience and exercise this earthquake scenario? If we go to the next slide. So here's an example where we've pulled out one of the facilitator guides on that. And actually, this is information that's in the toolkit specifically for the idea of water in the planning and preparedness kind of phase of emergency management. The issue is water supply in the Bay Area can be disrupted for up to 6 months. So what does that mean for you? And then it provides you a link of where you can find more information on this topic in the bigger HayWired report. But it also takes it a step further. We go to the next slide. Oh, that was one too far. There we go. For a number of the ideas, facilitator guides are being developed. And these delve even further. Not only do they list, oh, here's kind of the reference pages in the document, but they pull out key highlights of information from the scenario that are relevant specifically to water as you're thinking about planning and preparedness. Then it lists out sample discussion questions to help you kind of develop, what do you want to discuss? What are questions you might not think about and consider? And then it lists some additional elements to consider. For example, what does the loss of water potentially mean for your firefighting capabilities in terms of automated sprinklers, loss of water pressure? So it lists some other things that we might overlook and kind of prompt that dialogue to go a little further. Next slide. As I mentioned, it's also designed for those who have limited experience. So there's a section in here, getting started developing your exercise. It really starts with some prompting initial questions to think about as you're going through. Where are you? Can you leverage something that you're already working on? Kind of build it together. It gives tips and tricks on picking an exercise topic and selecting a format. Next slide. And then, as I mentioned, it goes on to the continuous improvement. On the exercise, the learning shouldn't stop once you're done with the exercise. And some organizations have formal requirements of needing to write after action reports and create these documents to capture lessons and improvement plans. But not all organizations need that. So it really focuses down to what are the things that can prompt that continuous improvement? How do we take the lessons that were identified, the insights and actions that we're identifying through this discussion, be it a short discussion at the start of a staff meeting, or be it a half-day workshop that's coordinated? There's things that come out of it. How do you move that forward? There's a section in the toolkit to help drive that. Next slide. There's also what we've put on now online is we have pulled and figured out how to help make the information that's in these 3 volumes more accessible. And so we've created kind of a crosswalk that talks about each chapter and what are the topics addressed in that. So if it's somebody who has much more experience, maybe developing an exercise, or somebody who's just looking for a specific topic, here's a quick way to cross-reference, scan, what are the chapters that talk about what I'm looking for? Instead of having to go through the entire report, this helps bring that together. Next slide. And so next steps, here's the link where you can sign up to be notified when the toolkit is available. It is getting close to being finalized and the first revision or first edition of it being put out. We do consider this a living document that will be revised and modified and changed based on feedback that gets given to us. One of the reasons we've put some of the content online is it makes it much more dynamic in terms of adding and linking to relevant content. Also, on the HayWired website here for the Earthquake Country Alliance, you'll soon be able to register for webinars on how to use the toolkit, as well as learn about community workshops that planning on hosting sometime in early 2022. And then here you have the contact information for both Mark and myself. Thank you for giving it a little bit of time to talk about kind of this toolkit that is currently under development to really bring together the HayWired scenario and make it something that's tangible and actionable for exercising and improving our regional resilience. Are there any questions? I didn't see any pop up in the chat, but I will give it a moment.
Yeah, there was a question, and maybe Monika, you're familiar with this bill. David Vonowitz asked, a California bill that would have required biennial training exercises by Cal OES, AB 1071 by Rodriguez, was shelved by the government in July. Any thoughts? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar enough on that bill to comment on that one. I don't know if anybody else on the call is.
Yeah. To see if anyone from perhaps Cal OES or other organization might be able to comment. I would ask David, what that was training exercises by Cal OES, so not by individual organizations, or which is really the intent of this toolkit. So
that's correct. It came from the legislators' Emergency Services Committee. The new chair is Freddie Rodriguez, and the proposal was that Cal OES ought to hold these, exercises, and 4 scenarios that have already been identified and worked up, 2 of which involve earthquake, one in the Bay Area, one in Cascadia, were supposed to be, trained. And I don't know what happened to the bill or why it was killed. Seems to me they could use a toolkit like this. It seems to me a toolkit like this ought to be usable and be designed to serve that purpose by a government agency like Cal OES as well.
Thank you, David. And yeah, the idea is that this is something that probably is more for organizations with less exercise experience, but in terms of some of the guidance it includes, it might be very basic for emergency management organizations. However, the thinking through of the ideas within it is a key factor of giving suggestions for what topics might be exercised and tying to the specific scenario in the data in the report. I think that's something that might be available and useful at all levels. Okay, and I think the comment following on from, sorry, I don't have my camera on, I just realized. There is a comment from Katrina. Would that be similar to the Golden Guardian exercises that Cal OES used to do? And I would think perhaps, but David, do you know a difference between those and what this would be?
I don't know, but you can read the bill by just searching for it online.
Okay. We should continue on. So thank you again, Monika. And Daniel, could you introduce our next speaker? Or Dena, I'm sorry, if it's Dena now. Sorry. Maybe caught her off guard. So I will.
There we go. Sorry. Let's see. So next we're going to hear from Andy Ewertsen, California Earthquake Authority Mitigation Director. Who'll talk about Mitigation Moment and the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program. Great, Andy.
Thank you very much. So next slide, please. So we're really here to talk quickly about seismic vulnerability in regards to older homes that have known vulnerabilities to earthquake damage. Next slide, please. There are 4 vulnerabilities that we look at. We have a program currently for one of those vulnerabilities. That is that first vulnerability, the cripple wall vulnerability. And then we also see pictures there for a living space over garage. We will soon have a program opening for that. We don't currently have a program for hillside house or chimney, but you can find out lots of information about those vulnerabilities and things that you can do to mitigate that at the California Residential Mitigation Program homepage or strengtheningmyhouse.com. Next slide, please. So what is a retrofit? What a retrofit doesn't do is earthquake-proof your house. It can make damage less likely and make the house more likely to remain habitable, but it will not earthquake-proof the house. So what does that look like for us? Next slide, please. It looks like a program that we have available to help mitigate that damage. The program is called Earthquake Brace Bolt, and it provides up to $3,000 to homeowners to strengthen their pre-1980 houses against earthquake damage. A qualifying homeowner must live in the house. A qualifying house must be in one of 395 zip codes in California that we've designated as currently eligible. It must have been constructed pre-1980. It must have a raised or other foundation type. It must sit on level ground or low slope. Basically, what that means is it can't have a cripple wall over 7 feet tall. And if it does have a cripple wall, they are eligible for a program, but also houses that don't have cripple walls that need to be bolted to the foundation are also eligible. The retrofit work must be in accordance with the California Existing Building Code, Chapter A3. Next slide, please. So we've currently done 15,000 retrofits. We're actually almost at 16,000. That number, 15,813, is even a little bit higher today. And we have another 1,400 or so in process. Next slide. So there you see the 16,000. We're very excited about that. We are also offering a new supplemental grant for eligible low-income households as funding permits. Those eligible grants will be available in combination with the upcoming registration for earthquake brace bolts. So they would apply, they would be eligible for the first $3,000, and dependent upon income may be eligible for additional funding as well. Next slide, please. Here's a quick video that just shows what that retrofit looks like in the crawl space.
In an earthquake, what will happen to an older home designed and built before codes were adopted throughout the state, an earthquake can actually shake your house off of its foundation. And if it topples like this, it's the kind of damage where you and your family may be out for months to even years. And so what we do with our earthquake brace and bolt retrofit is we go under the house and anchor the wood to the concrete foundation and put stiff plywood around the crawl space. And that keeps the house on its foundation in an earthquake.
Great, next slide, please. So here is an example of what we're trying to mitigate. This house was in the Napa earthquake in 2014. You'll see that house slid off its foundation, and obviously you can't get into or out of that house safely. This house was red tagged. Next slide. And here are two more examples. These are also both from the Napa earthquake. You can see how they've moved. Again, those stairs are about a foot away from where the door is. It should be next to that door. And you can see that little cripple wall where the house is slid off on the right as well. Next slide, please. So what does a retrofit look like? Here is an example of a new anchor bolt that was put in to secure the house to the foundation. Next slide, please. And if there isn't enough space for that, we can do foundation plates. Also, if needed, because there are a cripple wall, then you can have plywood bracing to brace those cripple walls also. Next slide, please. So registration has been open for a little while, but it closes on December 1st. We do have about 1,700 current grants available under this program. and it's located, as I mentioned before, in 395 zip codes. We are hoping that we're going to get some additional funding very soon and can add some additional zip codes as well. Next slide, please. And that is the end of the presentation. I believe there were some questions, but I wasn't watching the chat. I can try to open it here to see if there are any that I can answer.
There is a question from Stephen Andrews. Perhaps you want to just repeat it there about expanding the number of zip codes.
Sure. So we expand our zip codes based on funding available, and then with additional funding available, we look at two parameters for that. One is going to be seismicity in the area based on USGS maps. And the second will be on the preponderance of 1940 homes, because we know those homes are likely to need that type of retrofit. So specifically for that one zip code, I'd have to look it up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I do know that we add zip codes every time we get additional monies. Any other questions? Well, thank you for allowing us to be here again, Mark. We appreciate it.
There is one last question, Andy. Do you work on multi-unit buildings? And I'll add an aspect of that, or houses that are rented.
Thank you for those two questions. Currently, we can, in the Earthquake Brace Bolt program, work on buildings that are 1 to 4 units. Anything above 4 units is not available. It has to be owner occupied. So currently we do not allow for rented buildings, but we are, or rented houses. We are looking at hopefully expanding our program sometime in the near future or future. And we are putting in another grant application for the Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, which will be multifamily homes or buildings for 5 to 10 units. I did speak specifically about living space over garage. Thank you for reminding me. We are looking to open that program likely in the 3rd quarter of next year. So it will be for those houses that have a living space over the garage, or what we call soft story, but they will be individual homes.
And another question asked about, can houses on slab be retrofitted?
Well, technically a house on a slab should already be bolted to its foundation, and anything really built after 1980 is almost guaranteed to be bolted to its foundation. So you really shouldn't need to do that for those types of houses. So will the BRIC grant for multifamily apply to buildings already subject to local retrofit mandates? Great question, David. It looks like we are going to try to open the program in LA. So we would look to the mandate that is currently in LA. Any more questions?
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Great.
And thank you very much, Andy, for joining us again, and as you did last week at the SoCal workshop. And really, one aspect to consider in this program, that funding that's available, and is, if not for you, who do you know that should be applying? You might even consider, if you're in one of the zip codes and you're surrounded by houses that may not have their foundation retrofitted like these types of older homes on the cripple walls, that you go door to door with a flyer and encourage them to apply for the funding. Houses fall off. They might look like some of the pictures we saw. There may even be a gas break. It might cause a fire, and that might burn your home too. So really think about making sure people know about this. If not in your own community, maybe look up the zip codes of your family members or close friends, and make sure they know that they can get this funding to have their home be safe. You will be glad you did when their home doesn't fall off its foundation when the earthquake happens and you were able to help them. Andy has put in a link into the chat. In fact, ebbtools.com, it has resources you can use to promote the program to others. And that could be through your own organizational channels, to your, through the communities that you serve, as well as to people you know personally.
Thank you. I would just like to add, Mark, that if you're doing it individually, we also have social media posts that you can put into Nextdoor or your Facebook posts to connect people in your neighborhood and family members as well. So there's great resources there. Thanks for the plug.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, Dena, we'll turn back to you to facilitate this next part of the meeting.
Great. Thanks again, Andy, and really love the videos. It's really neat to see how that brace works. It makes it much clearer for people to understand. So that was wonderful. So we're moving on. We're going to have an open discussion and networking. So we have some questions. How did you adapt your shakeout drill to accommodate the continued COVID-19 considerations? And we'd like to share some of the lessons learned from your shakeout events and what other ideas have been inspired about today's presentations and what topics should be included in the 2022 ECA Bay Area workshops. So we do have a brief survey as well, but does anybody have anything they would like to share about their shakeout drill? And are we going to open that up?
So I put the questions into the chat, and I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have just a full view of everyone. You can go to gallery view, you can see everyone, you can adjust that. And also you can raise your hand using the reactions menu. So we can call on you in addition to answering the questions in the chat itself. So again, how did you adapt your shakeout drill to continue because of COVID? Lessons learned from your shakeout event? Ideas from today's presentations, and what should we be talking about next year? You can add comments on any of those topics.
Let's see, I'll lead off. We basically did our in-house shakeout drill again this year with all of our staff here at Fire Admin. But I really, one of the takeaways I think from today's is, again, sharing the information with folks and sharing the best practices like we're doing here today and being able to share the information. So definitely we'll take some of the brace and bolt tools and work that into our CERT newsletters and our social media plugs and tweet out that information to folks. So we hopefully spread the word and get more people on board with that. And so whatever venues you have that you can push out that information is great. And we're always here to help. And we have so many resources available to us on the ECA website, as well as the Earthquake Brace and Bolt website. So there's no lack of information for sure. But we do want to hear from you. What are some of the topics that you would like to have at next year's workshops? Jim, do you have an idea?
I'll ask another way of this question. And actually Megan has raised her hand.
Hey, this is Megan Stanton. I'm with PG&E. And what we did for our shakeout drill to accommodate the continued COVID-19 was we did a virtual one. We had our emergency preparedness and response group had started to do these monthly safety virtual workshops, because we used to do lunch and learns when we were in person. And since we can't do that anymore, they've been doing these virtual ones. So for October, we made it our shakeout drill. And we had two of our executives do podcasts that were pre-recorded about how they prepare at home and work for earthquake safety, and then how the company also has preparedness plans and what those plans are. And then I led them through a 10-minute PowerPoint based on the one that's from the ECA website, and kind of catered it to what we do at work. Included your 7 steps for safety to help them for that part of home, because a lot of people are telecommuting still. And then we ended the virtual event with a shakeout drill, where we sent out a page to everyone in the company and all our contractors that it was a earthquake drill and to participate. And it went really well. We had about 350 people participate in our virtual event, and about 10,000, I think, responded to our electronic pages, because we asked them to respond. If it were an earthquake, it would be, are you safe and ready to return to work or anything? But for the drill, we said, are you currently prepared for an earthquake? Do you need to do more, or no, you're not prepared?
Great.
Excellent. Yes.
Jim?
Sorry for the slow response earlier. I was,
That's okay.
I heard my name and I was like, what?
I owe you a response too, so.
But actually, there is something that I was thinking about. We're seeing already, just for other reasons, the fragility of our supply chains. And long before COVID showed up, I mean, this goes back, several years. There was, for me anyway, just informal conversation about the effect of an earthquake on our supply chains, because we've known for a long time that they were fragile. It's only showing up for real for the general public now. So anyway, I think because of what we're seeing now, it makes the idea of some more formal analysis and conversation on the effect of an earthquake on our supply chains more relevant now than ever before, because people are thinking about it. So I think there's a good one there.
Great. Yeah, definitely agree. I know we've had those lifelines in our back pockets, discussions for decades, and
yep.
Now the reality of it is here, right?
Yep. I mean, just thinking about the Bay Area in particular, we do have the Port of Oakland, and we have 5 major airports. You've got the 3 commercial airports, and then you have Moffett Field and you have Travis. But rail traffic in and out of the Bay Area, and then freeway traffic in and out of the Bay Area could be a real nightmare. So I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Right. Let's see. I know I'm gonna call out on some people. Let's see. Vincent in the chat. They did a simulation of a 6.2 earthquake around 6 p.m. virtually through Zoom, and reported damage assessment and things needed after doing triage, and then did the reporting to the IC through Zello app, and ran for about an hour with at least 100 participants. So that's fantastic, Vincent. I know a lot of folks this next year are looking at doing a nighttime drill as well to change things up. Earthquakes and severe weather, right? No time boundaries, right? So anytime, you could be any place, right? So we always continue to talk about that and think about when you practice and how you practice, and changing it up from time to time, so that you're not always doing exactly the same thing, but still testing that muscle memory for what you need to be doing prior to, during, and after, and those reminders to folks. And what we need to do on the response end as well is always good to practice at those different times, as well with your family. You might be home, you might be at work, you might be at school. So I think, and again, ECA has wonderful videos to share for all those different aspects. So continuing to share.
I have a question for Vincent. Have you normally done drills at other times? And what was the setting of where most people were they in that kind of time of your drill, if you're able to share?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Mark. I'm with the Los Angeles Fire Department Community Emergency Response Team. I'm the Battalion 11 coordinator. And during the COVID time last year, we did relaunch a program that was made and produced by one of the coordinators. And this is we called a Neighborhood Team Program, ntp-la.org. With this program, we do recruit team leaders in the grassroots level, especially Black captains and everything, to be team leaders. We train them and support them. And we're doing it every month, at least. We're doing our Zillow radio app every month and everything. We do in-person drills, simulate and facilitate, and we're doing it every month, at least, our meeting and everything.
Nice. Thank you, Vincent.
You're welcome, ma'am.
So important. I know, with our neighborhood drills too, we talk about, including more of the neighborhoods, looking out for folks with access and functional needs, and being inclusive, right, of the whole community. So that's really important, and it's important, to practice, just like you're doing. So that's fantastic. I want to pick on somebody else. Jeff, from SFO, what did you guys do for the shakeout? Would you like to share?
Hi, Dena. Hi, everybody. We've had a very busy fall time. We had a full-scale exercise in September, so our participation wasn't that big as we wished it could have been. We're hoping to do something bigger next year. I do want to say what we did in the spring is we engaged with Cal OES and California Geological Survey on improving our tsunami response. And I think that was a really good effort. We actually had a really good speaker that came to us and spoke to us about the tsunami hazards. I know we're kind of in the mid-season between now and this fall and next spring when we get to more of the tsunami awareness thing. But for us, I think for this year, at least calendar 2021, is more of a tsunami emphasis. And all this on top of COVID, with working telecommute, with being not quite at the ideal staffing, and we're hoping to improve that. But I think next year we're going to really try to get better participation in Shake Alert. It's in the past, it's been a great tool for us to use throughout the airport community here, not just the airport authority, but also the airlines and the tenants. So thank you.
Great. And I know you guys are working on getting your CERT team training back and things like that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, just as we are, we're launching in January here for Central County Fire and in-person training again. So looking forward to that.
And one reminder for anyone who was not able to have a shakeout drill on October 21st or other time, there's still time that you can have an earthquake drill for your organization or for any organization you're a part of, not just your workplace, but other community organizations or even in your household. So it can be a simple drop, cover, hold on, or lock, cover, hold on activity that you can use the PowerPoint presentations that we provide for online for in-person use too. Like have them on a laptop and follow along with your family. It's a great way of making that really simple. Explains how to drop, cover, hold on, and why, and provides some sound effects and narration for why you're doing it. So just keep that in mind. You can still register that activity and be included in the statewide and global total of shakeout participation this year, even those family drills or those other drills. So has anybody done a drill this year that maybe is with a different group than you've participated before, or maybe at home for the first time? And if you're too scared to speak up about it, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, it looks like Sharon in the chat put our neighborhood group consists of elders between 70 and 90 years of age. We lack the ability to get up off the floor, so we've trained by remaining seated, but bending over with the arms and hands protecting our head and neck. Perfect, Sharon.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
Exactly
the
what to
exact
do.
guidance.
Yep. Wonderful. In fact, last week with the Golden Eagle exercise, we had the Preparedness Summit from our Bay Area UASI group. And, you know, it was great to see Lewis from our Pacific ADA Center was at the conference with us. So we were talking about the images that were developed for folks with access and functional needs using a walker or a wheelchair or other device. And that's exactly it, you know, knowing what to do. You know, again, knowledge is power. So just sharing simple steps with everybody, right? And those simple 7 steps really make a difference and can help save lives. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Let's see, Sharon I taught my pets how to drop, cover, and hold. Don't forget your pets during an earthquake. I love it, Sharon. We do the same thing with ours, and we have a 6-month-old puppy, and the older lab can do it really well. He'll lie down under the table and all that. The puppy's not so inclined to do that just yet. We have to hold on to him, but we definitely did practice as well. So thank you. Let's see, Katrina, you have your hand up. Where'd you go, Katrina? Oops, did we just lose you? Okay, hopefully she'll pop back on and we can get back to Katrina. Let's see. Thank you, Vincent, for putting your website in the chat for your neighborhood team. And always appreciate sharing information. Let's see. Oh, Katrina's back. Okay, Katrina, go ahead. Where'd you go?
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on 2 different devices. One of the things we did this year for the first time was including our public libraries. Our main library is open to the public, and we actually had members of the public who came and participated in the Great Shakeout in the library, and now it opens up a possibility of we're going to be collaborating more with our libraries to see about how to protect people in the library during an earthquake, and talking about with book shaking and how we're going to minimize the injuries for that, and how to also maybe do fire drills with the public also at the same time.
I love it. Where's the safe spaces in the library, right? And do we have them book strapping and different things that can be done? But that's fantastic. Yes, libraries are a great place to conduct drills and get the public involved.
And Katrina, we'll be reaching out to you to let you know about what we call our Epicenter Committee, which is museums and libraries and parks. And it's a statewide group to make sure that people who go to those types of locations to learn about earthquakes and or even other topics are safe, as you know, that drills are happening, but also educational activities. So if you don't hear from us, please reach out at info@earthquakecountry.org and we'll let you know more. It's one of our sector-based committees.
We actually, one of my librarians and I attended the seminar back in September, September or October, about libraries and museums, so that that way we could start the discussion. So
excellent,
awesome. That's
Dena,
great.
I suggest we move to the next one of the final slides here, in case there are any short announcements that people would like to share. This could be about your upcoming activities, workshops, webinars. Susan, I don't know if you want to say something, Susan Garcia, about the USGS workshop. Put something in the chat about that coming up in January. Or anyone else?
Let's see, Susan's got in the chat here, the USGS in September activated the emergency alert and response system years, and throughout National Preparedness Month, they shared ECA messaging with employees on social media. So that's great. Susan, always good to hear from you. And maybe I think we might be able to put a link in the chat for your upcoming workshop. Maybe we can get that out, or Sharon can get that out to the group. Wonderful. Well, I know, as I mentioned, we're starting our next CERT in-person session, and we're going to do the full 9 sessions. So it'll be 8 weeks of training for folks. So we're looking forward to getting people back on board with that. And we did quite a few events between September and October and November. So just finishing off all of our exercises and now working on our strategic planning for next year and getting our calendar dates and things situated. So 2022, here we come. And also our CESA, our California Emergency Services Association conference, will be the first week of May. And our theme is Forward to the Future. So we're looking forward to that. And I know ECA will be there, I'm sure. So we'll make sure that you guys have a track in that as well. So we're doing a lot of new and great things. We're working on some mental health and wellness issues as well. So we've got a lot, and we're looking forward to that. And we've got some fantastic keynote speakers that we just got confirmed. So we'll be getting information out about that soon as well. And we're hoping to have a great in-person, our first in-person conference again. So anybody else that would like to share? We're right coming up on the time here, so I want to give anybody else a last shout out. Mark, do you have anything else then?
No, just our links here for ECA Bay Area, how to, another way of emailing us, bayarea@earthquakecountry.org, specifically for questions about ECA Bay Area, goes to Sharon Sandow. There's looks like some links maybe ended up in white font here, but of course, earthquakecountry.org, terremotos.org, our social media. Follow us at twitter.com/ECA. Somehow we got that really short name years ago. And again, as has been put into the chat, if you're still with us, thank you. Do complete the survey. Let's just, the link is there. And there are some final announcement that the Northern California Earthquake Hazards Workshop will be January 25th to the 27th. And Susan, will that be online or virtual? I guess that's not what I meant. Online or in person?
I understood. It's going to be virtual this year.
Okay.
Or next year, 2022.
A lot of great, the updates on most recent science and other activities being coordinated in the region. Okay, it is 2:31, and we really appreciate everyone staying. Dena, you have the final word.
Great, thank you, Mark. I just want to say again, thank you to everybody. We so appreciate your commitment to the Bay Area Earthquake Country Alliance and all of your time and expertise. This really is a wonderful organization. So if you're new, welcome. We'd love to have you on board on one of our committees. So we're always looking for folks to come on board and help and share your wonderful ideas and best practices. And we look forward to, again, being in person one day, but we're just thankful that everybody is safe and well. And I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. Thank you so much.